Welcome back to the Empowered Healers podcast with Songbird Grandmother. This is episode 4. And today I wanted to talk about finding a good teacher. So, in our previous episodes, we've talked about going from wounded healer to empowered healer, how to rest to avoid burnout, staying in the eye of the storm. And for episode 4, I want to dig deeper into finding a good teacher. Now, there's an old saying that I'm sure many of you have heard: when the student is ready, the teacher appears, right? And then there's another saying that may not be as popular, but it is: when the student is really ready, the teacher disappears. So this is to say that when you're really ready to embark and to grow and to stand in your empowerment and your legs, so to say, to really get some roots, you will meet a teacher. And it's always your decision whether or not you will go down the road with the teacher. But in the ancient practices, like if you go to Tibet or any Buddhist monastery or any shamanic training around the world, there is a process. No one gets to where they are alone. And in the ancient ways, once you find your teacher, you stay with that teacher and they teach you. Like in Korea, you have a manshin, and when you start working with your manshin teacher, they will initiate you onto the path and teach you, and you will stay with them most likely for the duration of their life and your life. Even in the afterlife, they're going to be guiding you and supporting you and helping you. And there's this deep reverence and respect because your teacher opens the doors. Your teacher can see you as you are. They see the good, the bad, the right, the wrong. They are in connection with the spirit world on a more profound level. And it's a contract on a soul level. It's something that you signed up to do, probably not just this lifetime, but many lifetimes. And there is an established connection. And once that root is rooted, you as a healer blossom and grow and become this beautiful flower and hopefully bear fruit. So in the ancient ways, there is this deep respect, deep reverence, deep reciprocity, and deep connection between the student and the teacher. And in this modern day, most trainings are short, meaning you can go and become a Reiki master in 3 days. You can go and be a shaman in 6 weeks. You can go do these courses like that and never really truly go deep. Never truly go deep into ceremony, never really truly go deep into your spiritual power. So when I meet a lot of healers, their training is all over the place. And you can tell because I'll ask simple questions like, okay, so tell me about what you do. And they'll say, oh, well, I'm a Reiki master. I'm a energy practitioner. I'm a hypnotherapist. And then there's like a slew of different things that they'll tell me. It's not just one or two. It's usually I'm maybe 5 to 10 different things. And then we have to narrow it to, but what do you really do? Because I'm not asking for those titles. I'm asking about what your power is. Who do you work with? What trainings have you undergone to cultivate spiritual power? What is your daily spiritual practice? What do clients come to you for? And when there's none of that basics then I find a lot of scattered energy and probably not a very rooted um, practice, or really probably very little clients. Because in order to really know yourself as a healer, you have had to have gone through training of some sort, basic training. You know how you go to the army and you have basic training? It's the same process, because when you don't have any spiritual training, or your spiritual training is like in spurts like that, it's like, 2 weeks here, 3 days here. I went to Costa Rica, I did this, I went to another thing, and I went, and there's seemingly nothing wrong with that if you're never going to work with people. If you're a spiritual seeker and you want to travel the world and learn as much as you can about everything, you want to read every book, and you're never going to actually practice it like an academic. Academics do that all the time. They go all over the world. They sit in ceremonies. They write about it. They talk about it. They speak about it, but they don't actually practice it. They're just sort of curious about it and fascinated, and it's just something that is like a hobby, or just a skill, something that they want to learn and maybe teach other people, but they're not actually going to sit down with people and exchange and make this their life work, so to say. They're going to stay in an academic or seeking level. But when you want to go beyond the seeking level, then a teacher will appear. And in this modern world, the teachers can appear in any which way, shape, and form. They can appear on TikTok, on YouTube, on Instagram. They can appear in your daily life randomly. You might go to a class or workshop or something, and you'll say, that person has something for me. You'll know it as a student, and the teacher will know it too. There will be a respect and a reciprocity and a connection. And they'll say, okay, there's something here. Let's, perhaps you'll embark on a more, you know, profound training. Maybe it'll just be meditation classes. Maybe it'll be ceremonies. Maybe it'll just be here and there until eventually you decide, yeah, I think I want to continue studying with this person. Teachers may invite you to do certain trainings or ceremonies or offerings. And eventually you may apprentice. And then once you've apprenticed, then you might initiate and fully commit. Initiation is a full commitment. And until you have a full commitment as a healer, you're not a healer. You have to have a full commitment. You have to have an initiation. You have to have a marking of time. And it symbolizes, this is my path. Because otherwise you're just flip-flopping. You're going to continue going from one thing to the next thing to the next thing and have no guidance, no training, no substance. True empowered healers have to have guidance. They have to have a teacher, and they have to listen. That's the thing, is you have to listen. Otherwise, you won't grow. And here in the West, that's a harder achievement, because in the East, people already know that. They have that foundation. They know their teacher since they were very young. Especially if we're talking about monastic life, there is a deep knowing and cultural context for the teacher and student. So you don't have to explain it. When people go to the West, to the East, and they see this type of system, it looks like, oh my gosh, that might be a cult. That's all your freedom. How could you trust somebody that much? We know about Jim Jones. We have those kind of inclinations, but in the East, it's not like that. It's about, I want to do this path. I am being called to be on a spiritual path. And I know I have gifts that can serve. I just don't know what they are and how to cultivate them. And so when you meet your teacher sees you and can help you, because they too have been on that path and they have mastered that path to a certain level. to be able to guide you. And once a teacher knows that the student has outgrown them, they will let them go. And that's when radio silence happens. That's when people say, I just don't feel like I'm growing with this teacher anymore. And then there'll be another teacher, or it will be tests. You will have to go through another initiation and test before you meet that teacher, or you may just be at the point where now you're just 100% communicating with the spirit world and being prepared to become a teacher. And how you will know that will happen is because you will start attracting your own students. And so initially, people will have to have a teacher to just show the basic protocols, to understand their gifts, what they do, what their spiritual power is, who the pantheon of spirits that they work with, the ancestors, the clearings, the healing. I mean, there's a whole process to it. You don't just say, have a vision and say, I'm a healer, which a lot of the new age is and it's very egoic based. See, a teacher will keep you humble, because if you just listen to your ego, you will go off. That's when you do start seeing Jim Jones and all that kind of stuff, because your ego will mimic or mask itself. It will want to be superior. It will want fame and recognition and wealth and money, and it will diminish the actual spiritual power that's not coming from a person, it's coming from the spirit world. And it will eventually collapse. It'll collapse, because if it's not from spirit and it's not genuine and real, it will collapse. And as quick as it went up is as quick as it'll come down. And that's why I always talk about the one hit wonder and that whole thing. It's better to build a solid foundation of knowing thyself, and then communicating and understanding and having a good spiritual practice, and easing into your work, versus, okay, I watched 100 TikTok videos and now I'm going to do it for everybody. No, it's better to build a foundation, a real, true foundation. Build the walls, build the roof, build the windows, build the doors, build it from concrete, from brick, not from dust and dirt, but really build a solid foundation. Because once you do, nothing can blow that house down. And it will only continue to flourish. It'll only continue to bloom. It'll only continue to become a beautiful home that is warm. It is inviting. People want to come in. They want to heal. They want to rest. They're like, wow, look at the beautiful flowers. Look at the garden. Look at the vines. Look at, the beautiful walls that are painted a certain color. And it's inviting. And that's your energy. That's you. That's what you build. But you have to have a good connection with a teacher, and you have to invest time, money, energy, because in our modern world, it's not like the old days where you would go and live with your teacher and they would make you do a bunch of labor and work and construction. And, I think that's the part people don't understand, is that even in the old days, you may not be able to collect money because they didn't really have money like that. But the person, if they wanted to learn from the teacher, they would come and they would work. They would work and they would stay with the teacher, and the teacher might teach you one thing after you have done 100 things, because you had to get humble. You had to learn from the bottom up. You had to show that you really wanted to learn. It's just like the Karate Kid when Mr. Miyagi is teaching Daniel-san about wax on, wax off. And here he's like getting all mad and frustrated because he's just waxing all these cars, and he wanted to learn karate, but he didn't know Mr. Miyagi was getting his car waxed and teaching karate. He didn't know he was actually learning karate. And that's because he couldn't see the wisdom of the teacher. And it's the same thing in this realm, in the spirit realm. It's like, if you want to go further, if you want to have consistency, if you want to have focus, if you want to grow, you have to have a teacher. And the right teacher will come at the right time when you're ready. And the first step will always be cleansing, purification. The teacher will check you out. I'm sure you will check out the teacher. But I know from my own experience, when I first met my first teacher, it wasn't something I pursued. In fact, I had a friend who kept telling me, oh, there's this wonderful woman on the radio. I want to go meet her. I want to have a reading. I wasn't really interested. And I started to listen to her here and there. And I thought, oh, yeah, yeah. And my friend just kept pushing it, pushing it, pushing it, right? And finally, we booked the readings, but it was like many months out, and many events had to happen in between that time frame for me to even understand what was happening. And when I first met my first teacher, it was exactly like home. It's coming home. It's like, wow, this seems like this is the way. And it's a life-changing event. It's something that you'll remember, and it's an invitation. And the right teacher is not going to be pushy. It's not going to feel like a sales gimmick. It's going to feel like this is the door in. This is the door in. Of course, there's a time, money, energy investment. You're going to have to invest into your training. You're going to have to invest. And the more you invest, the more you will get. That's just the bottom line. The more you pray, the more you'll get. The more you give offerings, the more you'll see results. The more you give to your teacher, the more they will open the door, because you have to remember the teacher is the doorkeeper. They hold a key to the spirit world, and they will communicate with the spirit world and get advice and guidance, and they will tell you what you need to do. But if you start taking advantage of your teacher, if you start asking for more, if you don't want to give more time, money, energy, then the spirit world will close doors. They won't open doors. Like if the teacher wills it, with the spirit world, doors open. If the teacher starts to feel neglected, used, you know, not respected, if there's no reciprocity, if you're all take and no give, if you're cheap with your teacher, they will know that they will feel it, and the spirit world will too, because the spirit world is not something that you can play with. It's not something that you can be cheap with. It's not something that you can try to take like with people. You can't lie to the spirit world. You can't do the things you do with the spirit world like you do with people. And so your teacher is a person. So in the East, people understand that the teacher is the embodiment of the spirit world, and they treat the spirit world like gold, and they treat their teachers like gold, because they understand that the teacher is the way in. The teacher has done the work, has mastered their egos. They have gone into ceremony. They have a connection to the spirit world that the student wants and can only achieve through merit, through grace, through dedication, through commitment, through honoring their teacher. Because how you treat your teacher is how you treat the spirit world. And the teacher obviously knows, okay, you're being cheap, you're being lazy, you're being non-committal, you're just all take and no give. That is not treating the spirit world with honor, respect, love, commitment, and truth. And the spirit world will just start closing stuff down. And how you'll know that is that, previously you were flourishing, meditation was going good, a lot of clients were coming, doors were opening, and then suddenly things start shifting. things start changing, things start getting harder, things start, not opening as they were. And that means that something went wrong. Something is not quite in alignment. And sometimes it's very dramatic. Sometimes the teacher will just close that door. And once that door is closed, it's like silence. And people will come to me and they'll say, I don't know what it was, but all of a sudden it's just like I'm lost. I can't see. I don't know what's going on. It's not like it was before. And when we go deeper, it's like, well, what changed? What changed? Oh, I stopped working with this teacher, or I stopped doing this, or I stopped practicing, my meditations and this and that. And especially if you've been studying with a teacher for a long time and then suddenly you close the door or they close the door, it can feel like being unhinged because now whatever you have cultivated on your own is yours. But whatever your teacher was helping you with, that they're not helping you with anymore, is gone. It's gone. Because when we stop working with students, we call all that back. We are not doing rituals for the students anymore. We're not doing ceremonies. We're not praying as much as we were for that student. So when you start working with a teacher, especially on a shamanic path, the teacher is pouring a lot of energy into you, whether they are conscious of it or not, because now the spirit world is working with that person. And so gifts start enhancing, meditations start becoming more vivid, ceremony starts becoming more powerful, ancestors start awakening, spirit guides start really, showing things in the dream time, in the vision world, clients start coming, abundance starts flowing because the teacher is opening. They're opening doors. And that's why I always say you have to be really good to your teacher, because the teacher will open more doors when you show more respect, when you show more reciprocity, when you show more love, when you're asking your teacher, how can I help you grow? How can I help you in, any way that I can? When you start doing things for the teacher, you are doing things for the spirit world, and the spirit world will respond. It will respond. And there's a lot of things to this, because sometimes as a teacher, we'll see students and we'll say, okay, well, the student is, got a good heart. They seem like they want to do this. Like they really seem like, they're really interested and that they want to pursue this as their path, and they have a gift. That's the biggest thing. If you don't have any gifts, it's nearly impossible. But they have to have a gift. You have to have a gift. So when you have those components, you have the right heart, you have the willingness, and you have the gift, then the spirit world will say, well, let's invite this person to ceremony. Let's invite this person to training. Let's invite this person to deeper work. And sometimes we'll get into the deeper work and that person is not ready. They don't want it. They have too much skepticism. They don't treat their teacher nicely. They have other outer obstacles that they can't overcome. And, it doesn't work out, right? And sometimes it's the people who you think will not work out that work out. And the people who actually don't work out are the ones that, and a lot of times, are the ones that may have had the most talent and gifts, may have had the resources of time, money, energy, and they may even have, had all the potential. And yet the spirit world will say, no, not them, not that person. There's something you're not seeing that we see. And that person will not pass the initiations that the spirit will give in order to go further on their path. Because at some point, in the beginning, it's very easy breezy. But as you become more and more attuned and more power is coming through, you will have to initiate, you will have to commit. And that's when the path becomes very hard. Is the closer you get to initiation, the harder the path will become, because now you're going to step into commitment. Now you're stepping from ordinary to extraordinary. And that is not a gift given to everyone. And I have seen in the modern world where a lot of shamans will initiate students before they even know what a shaman is. And I've always taken the road of slow, very slow, perhaps even years before I will initiate anybody, because I don't want to just throw somebody into a water that they don't know and then they'll just be, drowning in this water. I don't I don't like that approach. And some teachers do. Some teachers, before they'll even start working with you, they'll say, okay, you got to initiate, you got to invest X amount of dollars, and we're going to do this big ceremony. We're going to push you in the water. And then you're in. And once you're in, you're expected to be in. You're not expected to go back. There's no going back. Because once you cross the line into your path as a full-time healer, there is no other path. That is the path. That is what you will be doing. That is what you are initiating into. And it's because you made the commitment to the spirit world, not just yourself, not your teacher, your the spirit world, and they will hold you to that. Because once you initiate and then say you just jump out and you didn't like the path, you didn't like your teacher, you didn't like whatever, you jump out of the water and you try to go back to a normal life, it's going to be like so hard, because the spirit world will make every obstacle there is happen, because you made a commitment to the spirit world to do this as your work, as your life's purpose, as who you are and what you're going to help people with. It's not like any other little job. Like if you got a job as an accountant, or if you got a job at a corporation, you can, oh, I don't like this job, I quit. That's not the same thing, because now we're in the spiritual realms. And when you quit doing what you said you were going to do, the spirit world doesn't take that lightly, unfortunately. And it's not like they're going to blow every door down and they're going to, I mean, but I have seen that happen. I have seen people who were supposed to initiate, didn't initiate, and the hardships they went through because they didn't do what they contracted to do. On a soul level, they were signed up for this. And then when it came down to it, they said, no, I can't do this, and suffered the consequences. And they knew it. Every single person I've ever talked to who has had that happen knew it. I have seen other shamanic students who crossed the line, who initiated, got into it, didn't like it, couldn't pass those obstacles. And unfortunately, it's a very hard thing, because once you say you're going to do something to the spirit world and then you don't do it, you're held to the same obligations that you said you were going to do. And since you're not going to do it, doors are not going to open, and doors will continue to not open until a certain time passes. Because what happens with shamanism in particular is that it's a family lineage. Whether you know it or not, if you're called to the shamanic path, to the medicine ways, to energy healing, all these things we call that are shamanic in nature, it's a very ancient path. It's the oldest spiritual path on planet Earth. It's the original. And if you're drawn to it, it means that in recent history, not like 1,000 years ago history, but in recent history, maybe 2 generations ago, maybe 1 generation ago, maybe 4 generations ago, but most likely 2 to 3 generations back, someone was called to the path. Whether they received the calling or not is a different story. but they were called. And before them, people were called and answered. So it's just like, are you going to answer the call? Because the spirit world will keep calling until somebody in that lineage says, yes, yes, I will do that. And usually it skips a generation. And so you have to look back on like your grandparents. Was there a grandparent who was considered, you know, delusional, hysterical, schizophrenic, bipolar, something, what we call like mental? Was there somebody in your family, grandma, grandpa, who was just that oddball, who knew things were going to happen, who worked with herbs, who worked with energy, who maybe even healed people on, on the side, on the down low kind of thing? Maybe was called a witch, maybe loved cats and lived in a cottage with her plants and just wanted to be left alone. There was somebody who was considered that, which was a healer. They, a lot of females, but could be a man, could be a woman, knew things. They had insight, they had dreams, they were extremely sensitive, they were connected to nature, specifically animals, dogs, cats, horses. They were somebody who was very connected to the land, who knew things before they happened, was considered crazy in some way, shape, and form, and or had gifts that people knew about and probably even came to them for, and were considered outcasts or black sheeps of the family. Those are spiritual callings. And unfortunately, that grandma, grandpa, aunt, uncle, they didn't meet a teacher. That's the most unfortunate part. I always say we're in a teacher shortage because they didn't have the grand privilege and opportunity to meet a teacher. And if they did meet a teacher, they would have gone through the initiations to get on their path to understand who they are. And, that crazy stuff would go away. Because when you first really open into your gifts, you literally will go to the edge. It's the fringe. And you will go in between those realms of insane and sane, spirit and living, because that's the shamanic path. You have to go through those dimensions and you have to understand those dimensions. You have to know how to get in and through those dimensions. You have to understand how to cultivate spiritual power, go into the spiritual realms, bring back that power for healing. And the first sign or symptom of somebody who's got the gift is they're considered crazy. They're considered different. They're considered, that's just Aunt Susan over there with those weird visions that she gets that always come true, right? The ones that people don't want to deal with. Because if they had to deal with it, they'd have to look within themselves and see that gift within themselves. So powers are handed in and through genetic lines. And whether people understand that or not doesn't matter, because spirit world will call who it wants to call. But the beautiful thing is that if you have the gift, you meet a teacher who can help you cultivate, who can help you grow, who can help you nurture that gift. And that's a precious thing. It's a very precious thing. So I always tell people, honor your teachers, respect them, give them the time, money, and energy they deserve. Because I know for me and my path, I give everything to my teachers because I can't even imagine what my life would be without it. And right now, in this time and space and in this reality, more and more people are going to be reaching for the divine. More and more people are going to be seeking the answers. More and more people are going to be awakening into their ancient genetics and their gifts and their powers. And they're going to be lost, not knowing that if they just prayed, if they just awakened their spirit, all the doors would open. And that when they meet that teacher, they would know and they would recognize and they would honor it. And they wouldn't be afraid to invest their time, money, energy. They would want to. And that's one thing I'm really happy that I acknowledged as a young person. When I first got on my path, I knew my teacher and I was never hesitant about giving time, money, energy. I would do more and wanted to know more. I was so grateful, even though it wasn't always easy. And there was a lot of sacrifice I had to make. But I never regret those decisions I made. And I'm glad it happened when I was still young. I was still open. I was still fresh. I was still innocent. Because it's harder when you're older. It is. It is harder when you're older because you've been through a lot of disappointment and a lot of things in your life that make it harder to awaken and open and trust. But that's also part of your mind. And you have to really open your mind and work with your mind and learn and say, I have waited my whole life for this opportunity. And I'm so grateful, so grateful. And when you stay in that place, it doesn't really matter how old or young you are. It just matters that you're open. That's the only thing is you're open. And you say, you know what? What I do with my time matters. How I invest my money matters. And my energy right now, I have it. If you have energy, you can make the time and money. Like time is always passing. So what you do is your decision. But your money comes and goes. Money is always in flow. But energy, fades as you get older and older. So a lot of times I'll meet people and they say, I have the time, I don't have the money, and I might not have the energy to do spiritual training. And I was like, okay, well, time is most important. Money can, you can make money but energy, like if you don't have the energy to get out of bed, it's really hard, right? And you'll have to do a lot more spiritually to get that energy. But most people here in the West, especially, they always lead with money. Oh, I don't have the money for that. Even though they do have the money, they don't want to invest it into something they don't see. And that's the reality of the time we're living in, is that very few people will say, wow, I know this is my path. I know it. I know it. I've known it since I was a child. This is the person that can open the door, and I'm ready to invest my time, money, energy. Those are like rare jewels. When you find somebody who just knows and they dive in, for a teacher, that's like, wow, that's a ruby. That's an emerald. That's a tanzanite. That's beyond a diamond because it's rare. But most people have to keep seeing it, keep feeling it, keep getting the message over and over and over again, or have something so awful happen that awakens them and say, oh my God, I really need to go see now. I need to understand what is going on a deeper level. And then they'll look for the spiritual. But most people do not go to the spiritual first. They go to the physical first, and then they'll exhaust themselves with all the physical and then go to the spiritual. Whereas in the shamanic path, we always go to the spiritual first, unless you're like, losing your arm or leg or something where you need to go surgery. Go to surgery if you lose your arm, your leg, or whatever. But if it's something that you have happening to you, a pattern, and you're just like, why does this keep happening to me? Why do it? Then if it's a sickness that no doctor can fix, if it's something deeper than just the ordinary and into the extraordinary, that's the spiritual. And there's really nothing the spirit world can't fix. It's just, are you willing to listen? Are you willing to go the extra mile? Are you willing to dive deeper inside yourself? Are you willing to see the reality and not the delusion? And are you willing to do the internal and external work to create heaven on earth? Because in the ancient ways, you're not waiting for an afterlife. You're not waiting to go to heaven or waiting to go to something. You're creating it on earth with the goal of not coming back. You want to graduate this earth plane, go on to another plane where maybe life is not so hard. Maybe you're not always suffering. Maybe karma doesn't exist there. But the goal is not to just get off this planet. It's to graduate. It's to learn the lessons. It's to turn those lessons into blessings. It's to help more and more people. It's to accumulate merit through dedication, through becoming enlightened, becoming that bodhisattva, becoming that person that brings heaven to earth. And the greatest person is the person who can help others to alleviate their suffering, which is the healer, which is the person who has decided to walk a path of service, dedication, merit, contentment, love, compassion, and beauty. And those are rare jewels. And that's why when you do meet somebody who says, yes, I know this is what I want, this feels like home, this is what I know I was born to do, that's gold. That's a jewel. That's a precious thing. And when you work towards that, all the doors open. All the doors. But you have to have the consciousness to recognize. You have to know the right from the wrong, the good and the bad. If you don't know what a good teacher is versus a bad teacher, you most likely will have to go through the bad teacher first to get to the good teacher. If you don't know what a good healer is, a good reader is, a good psychic, good medium, you'll have to go through the bad first to go to the good. That's just how you learn on this earth. And that's why there's so many good teachers and so many bad teachers, so many good healers and so many bad healers, because they all serve a function and purpose. It's just like, landscaping. Gosh, I've had the hardest time finding a good sprinkler person. But I have to go through all the bad so that when I do find that good one, it'll be like, yes, this is the one. This is the one that, they won't have perfection. Very rarely will you find somebody perfect. Even your teacher will not be perfect, but it will be the good outweighing the bad. So if you're really ready to go on your empowered healer's journey, if you really want to open doorways, if you really want to step into a new chapter and this feels like home, then I would invite you to reach out. Let's connect. Let's see how your path can evolve if you had the right guidance. How can your path blossom and bloom and fruit with the spirit world, opening doors, manifesting realities, creating heaven on earth? And if that sounds appealing to you, then be sure to check out my website and continue to listen to this podcast. Go look at my other videos on social media and connect. Until we meet again, I'm wishing you all the best on your path of becoming your greatest self. Aho.